What's up, guys? Eli here, back for a new stuff video. This is going to be a unique one, I guess you could say. It won't interest all of you guys, although I wish it would. This is going to be an all vinyl and all prog video. I just kind of happened to score kind of a pretty decent stack of prog stuff that I didn't have at my local record store, and it just all happens to be vinyl, and well, I'm pretty excited about it, so let's dig in. Dig in? Who says that? When did I start saying dig in? Anyways, I hope it's not a habit. Anyways, how are you guys doing? This is Wednesday night. I'm dead-ass tired, but I don't know. I felt like doing this before I went to bed. I have not listened to all this stuff. Some of it I've heard in the past. Some of it I've heard since I bought it. Most of it, a lot of it I haven't. So this band, I do have one of their albums, but I'm still relatively pretty much a noob to these guys. We're talking about Marillion, formed in England in 1979. This is an EP from '87. So Marillion were pretty much, they're considered the second wave of British prog. Obviously, '79 is pretty fucking late. I mean, prog was, as far as being in the mainstream, prog was dead in '79. It didn't really make it. It barely made it to the mid-'70s. You know, prog had its kind of mainstream popular heyday for a good couple of years, and then I'm not sure what happened. I wasn't alive, but it tanked. But you know, here come Marillion in 1979, and they were very popular, you know, throughout the '80s, and actually, I mean, they're still going to this day, but they were carrying the torch of, you know, their heroes, the British prog heroes, especially Genesis. A lot of people will compare Marillion to Genesis. They'll kind of say like they were the second coming of Genesis, and with no disrespect to the band, they have plenty of their own ideas, but that's a fair assessment. So I don't have a lot of their stuff. I have one full-length album. I have a B-sides compilation, which everything from this is actually on. So I didn't really need to buy it, but I mean, come on, how cool is that? I had to get it. So it's got Market Square Heroes. I can't remember if any of this was from one of their full-length albums. Yeah, not sure. And then on side 2, it has Three Boats Down from The Candy, whatever, and a 17-minute song called Grendel. So very cool. I think I have heard these songs in the past. I just it's been a while, and I have not spent a ton of time with Marillion just yet. But rest assured, it's inevitable. Next, we got a stack of stuff from one of my favorite all-time bands, Genesis. We have what is considered probably their definitive live album, and I would actually completely agree with that. I think this is their best. They have a number of good live albums, very great live albums, actually. This was the first one they did in 1977, so we got the double live LP, Seconds Out. I happened to score this one in really fucking good condition. I've bought, brand new vinyl in about this shape here. As you can see, it's pretty fucking clean, man. This was a killer tour. Obviously, no, of course I wasn't there, but this is still when they had what most would call the classic lineup. They had Phil on drums and vocals, but they also had Bill Bruford from Yes and King Crimson on drums. So they had two drummers. Bill was doing the majority. Phil was mostly just being the front man on this tour. He would do some drum stuff. Really fucking cool, dude. Especially like the Trick of the Tail songs on here, I think are just so good. This is one of the best live albums in prog history. If you like Genesis at all, or if you're interested in prog, get this. It's you're not going to be complete without it. Then I have another live album. This was I take it back, Seconds Out was their second live album. I apologize. This is from 1973. This was their first live album, just called Genesis Live, back when Peter Gabriel was in the band. So I kind of fucked up. On Seconds Out, I said it was the classic lineup. That would not be the lineup most people consider the classic lineup, because Peter Gabriel's out of the band by then. Phil Collins is already on vocals. They were still in that in-between era though, where they were still Phil was on vocals, but they were still playing. They were still playing complex prog. They hadn't started doing the poppy stuff yet. But this is pure early Genesis, like I said, from 1973. So this is, I'm not going to say the first lineup, because they actually had a couple lineup changes earlier on, but this is what most people call the classic lineup. Phil Collins on drums, Peter Gabriel on vocals, Steve Hackett was still in the band on guitar, and yeah, this is most of the Genesis diehards. This is the lineup they want to hear. I've never heard this. I've never heard this album, but it starts off with "Watcher of the Skies," and I'm fucking sold. Ends with "The Knife." Two of my favorite Genesis songs, bookending this entire thing. Man, I gotta listen to it soon though. Starting off with "Watcher of the Skies," I mean that's gonna blow me away. That is one of the best prog songs ever written. Speaking of Watcher of the Skies, we have the fourth album and the only studio album I did not own yet. 1972, we're talking about fucking Foxtrot. One of the best prog albums of all time. I constantly am changing my favorite Genesis album. Many times it's been Foxtrot. It might still be. I kind of change it from Foxtrot, I'll change it back to Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. Right now it's kind of Trick of the Tail, but I always return to Foxtrot as my favorite Genesis album just because it's just sheerly amazing. If you're a prog fan and you're not sold on Genesis yet, there's something wrong with you, but just go listen to the song Watcher of the Skies. It is a prog classic. Decently clean copy, for how old it is. It's back, back in the 70s. People did this throughout the 80s and 90s, even where they'd write their fucking name on the cover. It's got a coffee mug stain, which I think is kind of cute, actually, but dude, yeah, that album's untouchable. And we're still in Genesis. I bought this on accident. I knew I had it on CD, but I forgot that I already had a vinyl copy of this. Mine's a promo copy, but it's in about the same condition. This one might even be slightly cleaner. We're talking about their 9th studio album from 1978, and then there were 3. This is a cool album. I will admit this was a hell of a grower for me. I didn't like it at first. It's still not really one of my favorites, but it is a good album, man. It's got a clever title, and then there were 3. That was because, not too long ago, that Steve Hackett had left, and prior to this album, Peter Gabriel had left. So they started with 5 guys, then there were 4, and then there were 3, and they were a trio for a good while. This is a pretty good album. It's still got Phil Collins on drums and vocals. This is still largely a prog album, but it is definitely, it is definitely showing some foresight. You're seeing the transition. They are starting to write shorter songs, a little more concise. Again, there's still a lot of prog to be found here, but they were edging their way into a rock band with pop sensibilities, maybe an art rock band you could call them. In my opinion, Genesis were always a good band. They had some low points, of course, but I wouldn't consider this one, but it is not one of my favorites. How do you guys feel about it? I know it has its fans. I know most people kind of feel about the same way I do, but it does have its fans. And we'll finish off the stack of Genesis with the Keep It Dark single from the Abacab album. Keep It Dark was from the Abacab album, which was, I don't remember what year Abacab came out. I do like Abacab quite a bit. I got to be in the right mood for it. As B-sides, it's got Namananu, which I think is not on the album. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty goddamn sure it's not. And it's got Abacab long version. I don't know what that means. I'm not sure. I haven't listened to this single yet. But Abacab is a killer song, actually. That is my favorite song on the album. Yeah, I love collecting Genesis singles whenever I can find them. I have a pretty good stack. You guys have seen them. And then we have a prog band from the US. So in the 70s, there were a handful. There weren't a ton. There were a handful of bands that kind of got some attention because they were from the US and they wanted to sound like either Heroes, which were the British prog bands. Yes, Genesis, King Crimson, so on and so forth. So along with like Styx and even more so Kansas and a band called Fire Ballet. There weren't a ton, like I said, but you also had Starcastle. Really cool band, symphonic prog. They sound just like Yes. They are literally the American version of Yes. They had, I think, 3 or 4 albums. This is the self-titled debut from '74. They actually started in '72, so they got it started pretty early on, which was cool. They started well before Marillion did, who were from England. So yeah, man, if you like Yes, there's no way you could possibly hate Starcastle, and that would really be weird to me unless you're just against hearing bands that sound like other bands, which I've really never been opposed to that. I'm fine with it as long as they do it well, and I dig Starcastle. I have one of their other albums, so I need one more to have the original 3 early albums, but yeah, I don't remember what the other one is, but yeah, I have 2 out of the 3. This is probably the best one, the debut. And another one of the British prog giants formed in 1970. They went on to about 1980 or so. Killer band. I've been into them actually a pretty long time. I only have like I think 2 of their albums. We're talking about Gentle Giant with The Missing Piece from '77. So like I said earlier, by '77 prog was not mainstream popular anymore. So I mean the early prog bands were kind of scooting to, they wanted to keep making music. They wanted to stay signed. They wanted to keep their music career, but they were getting pressure from the label to crank out hit singles and stay with the times. And Gentle Giant were forced to try to do that. I haven't heard this album, to be honest. I've heard most of their early stuff, and I've even heard some of their later stuff. I actually like some of their last few albums. So if this is somewhere in between, I'm definitely going to be okay with that. I've seen interviews with them, and they're talking about like their last album from like '80 or '81 or something like that. They were getting major pressure from the label. They wanted to keep playing prog. They wanted to be themselves. They did not want to become this, like a poppy rock band. They didn't want to, have pressure to write radio hits and stuff like that. They were completely unhappy, and it's really sad actually that they had to end their career just because of the fucking labels, bullshitting. What a fucking shame. Money and greed and shit like that. I could go on forever, but it just pisses me off to no end. I think of some of the artistic integrity that over the decades that have just been ruined, in the name of money. It's bullshit. Money and art do not go hand in hand. I don't care what anyone says, but yeah, if you're a big prog fan and you've never heard Gentle Giant, you have to. A super complex band, super original though. That's the funny thing. They didn't write 15, 20, 30-minute prog epics like Yes would do. I've seen them in interviews say like we didn't want to write 20-minute songs. We wrote 4 to 6 minute songs that had 10 minutes worth of material packed into it. You can listen to their music and it might sound kind of straightforward for prog, but if you listen close, it is super complex, and they don't sound like anybody. They are one of the most original sounding prog bands of their time, maybe even the most original. You could easily say that, and you wouldn't be wrong. And 5th album, 1984. You guys know I love Toto. Isolation. I never had this album. I would have been happy to just get it on CD, but I've never seen it on CD, ever. In fact, I remember looking for it on Discogs some years back. I don't even know if this had a CD pressing, which doesn't sound right. I couldn't find one. All I could find was cassette and vinyl, so honestly, as weird as it is to say, I don't think it has a CD pressing, so whatever. I have the album now. It's not one of my favorite Toto albums, but it's not bad at all. Actually, this is a good Toto album. title track Isolation, Holy Anna, which they still play live pretty often. Yeah, this is a good album. I haven't heard this a lot, but I have heard it, multiple times. Trying to remember the lineup on this guy. Okay, yeah, this is the album. I think he was only on this one album, right? This is the album that had Fergie Fredrickson on vocals. He's a good singer. I think he was a pretty good fit for Toto. Other than that, you had the classic lineup: Steve Lukather, David Paich, Jeff Porcaro, Steve Porcaro, and Mike Porcaro, the Porcaro brothers. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is, correct me if I'm wrong, pretty sure this is the only album that had Fergie on vocals. And like I said, he was a good singer. He did fit Toto pretty well, and it's a good album. It's kind of middle of the road, but it's still pretty good. Now the next two are more, I guess, more jazz fusion-y or fusion-esque type bands, more so than prog. But for me, all those genres kind of go hand in hand, right? So this is the first album I've ever had from Return to Forever with Music Magic. So this was a band that was pretty much headed by Chick Corea, who, I mean, he is one of the top legends of all time in fusion music. He had a lengthy solo career. I have some of his stuff. I have I have an album from the Chick Corea Electric Band, which is really, really cool. I've always wanted to get something from Return to Forever, because this is, most people will say this was the best thing Chick did. Not so much this album, but just this band in general. So I'm just diving in, man. From what I've read, because I haven't listened to it yet, but from what I've read, this is kind of, for their discography, it's kind of middle of the road. But this band was so amazing that, their middle of the road albums are still excellent. So, seventh album from 1977. They were active from about 71 to the 2010, somewhere in there. Chick Corea actually died a couple years ago, so R.I.P. Chick. And yeah, I'm really, really stoked to dive into this one. I was reading the liner notes the other day on the back, and this is kind of funny. The thanks. It's right on the back, a very special thank you to L. Ron Hubbard for his continued support and inspiration. So in 77, I don't know if Scientology had become a thing yet. L. Ron Hubbard, in case you didn't know, he used to just be a fucking sci-fi novel writer. I don't know, man. Weird thing to see. But anyways, Return to Forever. Any of you guys into this band? In the fusion world, they are legendary, to say the very least. And last thing I have, which this is a band I've actually never heard of. This is like a jazz fusion / world music. A lot of these band members were from Africa, so they play a lot of traditional African music mixed into everything else they did. We're talking about osibisa. They've only done a little bit of homework. This is apparently a very loved album. They formed in 1969. They went on to they would be active till the early 2000s, I think. This is their debut album from 1971. I saw that Roger Dean artwork. I had to grab it. How do you get Roger Dean for your album cover on your first album? That's pretty impressive. Clearly, the record label had faith in these guys, and were completely willing to invest a little bit. I've only heard a little bit so far, and it is really cool music. Maybe a little bit outside of my comfort zone, but that is okay. Like I said, a lot of their music is world music, but from what I've read, they have some really cool jazz fusion-y moments. I can't wait to hear the whole thing. It even goes as far as to say where each band member is from. So you got one guy from Ghana. I'm going to sound like a typical dumbass American. I don't know where Ghana is. Is that part of Africa? I shouldn't even be asking this on camera. So 3 of the guys are from Ghana. One guy's from Grenada. One guy's from Antigua. And one guy is from Nigeria. So, yeah, very cool. Again, look at the crazy Roger Dean cover art. Yeah, can't wait to check this one out. Like I said, I sampled a little bit of it online, and really, really cool stuff. Anyways, guys, I hope at least have enough prog leaning viewers to some of you enjoyed this video. I know there's a handful of you guys that like the prog stuff. That's always been my problem with this channel, is that my tastes, I don't want to say my tastes are diverse, but I think it's the channels that do the best are the ones that focus mostly on one sound. You know, like maybe one type of metal or just metal in general. You know, I don't care. I like to mix all the things that I'm about and just kind of share it with you guys and make a couple friends along the way. So anyways, let me know what you think. Have you heard any of these albums at all? Any Genesis fans? Anyone heard Star Castle? Let's talk. Because I gotta go. It is late. I gotta hit the hay. Louie's already passed out, I think. But he does say hello, I'm sure, in a doggy dream or something like that. I got a lot of cool stuff in the works. Hopefully you guys like the Alice in Chains album ranking. I want to do more album, like discography rankings. I got some in the works, some collaborations with other dudes, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your week, and thanks for stopping by as always. Talk soon. Cheers.